Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Hardware Free Horizons Challenge webinar with Ventora. My name is Jamie Elliott from HeroX, and I'm joined today by Sam Bahawe and Scott Kelly, our CEO at Ventora. And I'm going to turn it over to them to give you an introduction and overview of the company and the challenge, and then we'll look at the challenge itself on the HeroX site. So, Scott.
Great. Thanks, Jamie, and good to be with everyone today. Welcome to this particular challenge. The name of our company is Ventora, and we have a number of building product materials brands within our portfolio, and the one we're specifically focusing on today is doors. But before we get to that, I think it's probably appropriate to just discuss a little bit about our organization in more depth so you can see where all this has come from. So many of our brands have been around a very, very long time, and some over 80 years. Our youngest brand is around 40 years old. So they've been around in the Australian and European and North American building product markets for many, many years. We employ around 4,500 people. We're on 4 continents, and we have 60 sites where we manufacture and sell our products. You can see the brands here and their logos listed below, and brands like Stegbar have been around for 75 years, Corinthian Doors over 80, Breezeway over 85, Trend over 50, A&L 44 years this year. So many of the brands we're talking about have been around for a long time and have a very steeped and storied tradition within the Australasian building material sector in particular. So just to provide a little more context now, one of the things that I'm not going to do, I'm not going to read all the bullet points. I think that would be a little self-indulgent, but certainly when you think about the categories of products that we have, windows and doors, and we're talking about glazed doors here in particular, and they're for our 5 brands that you see there, Trend, A&L, Stegbar, Breezeway, and Anita. Now we do those in aluminium or aluminum. We also do them in timber doors and supply those products all over Australia to tens of thousands of domestic housing builds every single year. So they're the market leaders by a long way in our market. Another category that we do is wardrobe, shower screens, backsplashes, and glass. And you can see images there on the screen of some of those products. And again, those brands have been around for many, many decades and are an integral part of building materials here in the Australasian region. I'll skip Corinthian Doors and come back to that in just a second, but we do have a vertically integrated supply chain where we've got 2 state-of-the-art glass processing facilities, and we also paint our own aluminum through our own vertical paint line, and we import all our hardware, or a large proportion of our hardware, I should say, through a business called FHS, or Fenestra Hardware Systems. Now, if we come back to Corinthian Doors, which is the scope and challenge that we're focused on here today, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Corinthian Doors has been around for over 80 years. And if you just think about the doors in your own home, I'm sure everyone understands that doors have been around for many hundreds and thousands of years, and they haven't changed a whole lot. I think they're far more aesthetically pleasing than what they may have been a couple of hundred years ago, but certainly the function of a door with a handle and a hinge and a slab has remained pretty much a constant. Other developments we have done in recent times are around fire doors, 1-hour fire doors, 2-hour fire doors, architectural joinery doors, jambs, which are around the outside of the door, moldings, and many other things. So we produce these doors in Australia. We also have 3 manufacturing facilities in Southeast Asia, 2 in Indonesia and 1 in Malaysia, and they export doors into North America and into Europe. So those businesses and those brands within the Corinthian Doors portfolio have been around a very, very long time, and are certainly the market leader here in Australia, and are getting an ever increasing presence in North America and Europe. So we've spoken about the brands that we have, and this just provides another snapshot of the locations around the world in which we produce our product. And then we do export, as I mentioned, out of Southeast Asia. But certainly in Australia, we do provide our products directly to the building sites. Across our windows, our shower screens, and our wardrobes and doors, we have over 500 installers, over 200 service technicians, 250 sales representatives, 200 estimators, some of which are in Australia, some of which are in Taiwan, and some of which are in Indonesia. 70 folks in R&D, product management, and marketing, as well as our own testing facilities and testing rigs, which are our NADA accredited testing facilities, and over 100 IT professionals. So we're a reasonably well-sized organization, as I mentioned, that's been around quite some time and looking to push the innovation envelope through this particular challenge. So innovation, as we mentioned on the previous slide, we've got a very strong R&D team from both tech support, product management, industrial designers, engineers, all focused on how do we make windows and doors more innovative and more appropriate for the markets in which we're serving. I mentioned before, we have 2 NADA accredited testing rigs where we test out our wind and water facilities, and so our wind and water ratings for the products that we do take to market. And those test rigs are audited independently every single year to ensure that we can claim the certificates that we are. We're doing a couple of collaboration projects at the moment with universities here in Australia, looking at some material science breakthroughs. So innovation forms a really important part of what we do here at Ventora, and certainly is the case for Corinthian doors. Okay, so that is not a recent picture of our Corinthian doors joinery facility, but you can see that we've been around for a long, long time, and started back in 1942. Not too far from the centre of Sydney. And over the subsequent years, it was established by the Perini family way back then, and there's been multiple generations, and was sold to a global company back in 2004. And they've done such an amazing job of establishing a nationwide and actually an international footprint, because out of our Asia door facilities, we do sell, as I mentioned, into Europe and into North America. The 2 things I would suggest that have been at the heart of Corinthian door success, and the reason for their longevity over such a long period of time, is around the innovation and around their focus on the customer. And those 2 things are real legacies that still live today, even long after the founders, the Perini family, have moved on. But certainly that culture is still well and truly alive in our business today. Some of the customers that we do business with, we've been doing business with them for decades. They have very, very strong relationships. Corinthian Doors is the market leader, with the significant market share. There's only 2 real players in the Australian market, many more globally, of course. In Australia, we build around 100,000 detached homes every year, and another 70,000 high-rise residential components. So you can see there that with over around 70,000 houses, our products going into houses every year, we play a very large role with Corinthian doors in the Australian market. And that goes everything from first home buyers right through to luxury home buyers and aged care living facilities. Corinthian plays a role in all of those segments. Jumping into a little more detail now, we start talking about Corinthian products themselves. So you can see here what we're really talking about. We've got entrance doors and frames, which, as the name suggests, is when you go into a home, there is a front door, and that's generally a higher end product that we put into those positions. Internal doors and frames, so on the inside of the house. Cavity solutions, the one you can see there in the middle, is it's almost like a pocket that goes inside the wall and the door slides back into that pocket. Wardrobe doors, which is second from the right, or closet doors, which I suspect needs no explanation, and what we call our BAL rated and fire doors. So BAL stands for bushfire attack level. And those doors are incredibly important in many parts around the world, and Australia is no different, where bushfires play a role every single summer. So they're an important part of our range also. So entrance doors, or the front doors. So we can see on the left-hand side our blonde oak door. That's a recent addition over the last few years to our range of doors, and it's proving to be incredibly popular. We manufacture these doors in our Indonesian and Malaysian facilities, and they are a joinery door. And in fact, most entrance doors are what we would call a joinery door, where it's solid timber joined together to form the components of the door, whereas our internal doors, which we'll come to shortly, many of which are hollow core doors, and they are produced locally here in Australia. The second door, you can see the elements door, and you can probably tell from the different array of doors that we have for entrances, they suit different types of homes. And you can see there with the peninsula and the deco door. One of the things that I'd like everyone to pay close attention to is when you look at the hardware. Many of those handles are quite similar to what we've seen over many years. Obviously, the elements door and the deco door is a very different type of handle. But herein, I think, lies the opportunity for what we're trying to achieve is how do we reimagine what that is. So very exciting opportunity for us here. And those front entrance doors will play a pivotal role in what this hardware could possibly be. Interior door favorites. Again, so you can see many types. You can see glazed doors there on the left, our Manhattan doors. Our deco doors there, center from the left. So they are pressed here locally in Australia, and they will have a hollow core, or what we call a honeycomb core, with skins that go across the outside of a stile and a rail. And the handles, or the door hardware, as we say, that you can see on the deco door, is a very traditional type of door handle, and therein lies the opportunity. Motor white oak. Whilst these are internal doors, and the motor prime doors are also internal doors, they are actually joinery doors, and they're a high-end internal door, and they are manufactured in our Indonesian facilities also. Okay, so from here, I'm going to hand over to our head of R&D, Sam Bahav, who is going to walk us through the design challenge at hand. Sam.
Thanks, Scott. Look, as Scott mentioned, doors have been around for a long time, and Corinthian Doors has been making really good design doors in Australia and selling them all over the world. But essentially, the approach to the door hardware hasn't changed much. And what we are looking for is not just to distinguish our product from our customers, but to come up with a breakthrough innovation whereby we are trying to eliminate the handles and have a seamless entry through the door. If you could just go to the next slide, please, Jamie. And as we see, internal doors are in habitable rooms within the home. They connect passages, and they are essentially a part of the door furniture, and it needs to blend in seamlessly within the house. So what we are looking for is a challenge where we are trying to move away from the traditional door handles and levers and knobs, and come up with an idea where we retain the functionality of the door, but create a seamless entry where there are no obstructions and there are no visible handles, so to speak. And we have deliberately kept the hinging side away from this challenge, because we thought that if we tackle the levers and the handles and the knobs, then the hinge part can follow. So that's the reason why we put this challenge forward, to basically come up with a breakthrough innovation, not just a differentiated hardware offer, but a completely new approach to how doors can be opened and closed and latched. So that's the reason for the challenge. Over to you, Jamie.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Scott, so much. So we're going to talk a little bit now about how to view the challenge on HeroX and how to dive into it when you are ready. So this is the challenge page. If you're not familiar, or if you haven't seen it yet, my first recommendation when you get to the challenge page is to click follow, to follow this challenge. Even if you're not planning to submit, we hope you do submit, because it's not a hard submission at all. But follow the challenge, because you'll get updates about, even when the winners get announced, you'll get to find out who they are. You'll get automatically notified anytime there are updates to the challenge. So the challenge page, Ventora Hardware Free Challenge, and then you can scroll through. So the way the challenge guidelines work, and I'll walk through the platform. You have the summary tab, and we'll go through each of these tabs quickly. But the summary tab is the main source of information for the challenge. You should be able to get everything you need for competing in this challenge by reading through this, and we recommend that you read the entire overview and challenge guidelines. So the overview gives a high-level perspective on what the challenge is and why it's here, similar to what you just heard from Scott and Sam. And then you get into the guidelines and learn how to actually compete in this challenge. So what the background is, what the problem is that we're trying to solve, what the challenge is for you, and then what the prizes are. So there is a total of $15,000 available for in the prize purse, and there are up to three top prizes to be won, and some categorical prizes as well. So this is a conceptual challenge. So you'll be submitting a write-up about your concept, as well as some schematics or drawings for what your solution is. So here's the timeline. We have at the time of this webinar, we have just over a month until the submission deadline. The submission deadline is October 31st at 5 p.m. US Eastern Time. So we'll take a look at the platform timeline as well in just a second. So one thing you'll want to pay attention to, so once you've read through the problem, what your challenge is, and how you can compete, is the judging criteria. When you actually go to create your submission, which I'll show in just a minute, you'll want to consider these 4 criteria and how they factor into what you're creating. So what you'll notice is that for each criterion, there are questions in the description. So what you want to be sure of is that your submission can answer these questions as much as possible, so that you meet each criterion. And then the challenge rules, you will also want to pay attention to the challenge rules, read through them, make sure you comply, because that will be a part of the agreement. When you're ready, you can click solve this challenge. You can also do that up at the top. So I'm going to show just what that process looks like. When I'm ready to solve this challenge, I take a look and I read through the challenge-specific agreement and make sure that I am ready. Once I get to the bottom, I can accept that, which will sign that challenge-specific agreement. And then you have a couple options on the HeroX platform. You can submit as an individual, which is what I'll do today, but you can also join a team. If your team leader on the platform has already created a team, you can search for them and find them, or you can start your own team. You do not need to have a team in order to compete in this challenge. This is just a feature of the HeroX platform so that you can find teammates and your team can be recognized if you're selected as a winner. So for today, I'm going to select no, I want to compete individually. And now I'm ready. I've successfully registered. And now I'm going to start an entry. So I'll give my submission a title, just something to be remembered by, and a short description. And then I can also upload an image. Since imagery is a part of this submission, we assume you might have an image, but this is an optional field. Also, how did you hear about this challenge? This is also an optional question, but we'd like to get this question answered so that we can find you for future challenges that you might be able to solve. So we want to know where you're coming from, so you'll enter your location. And then in up to 5 pages. So again, $15,000 on the line for a 5-page submission. And you put in your concept description. Be sure to read through this description here. You'll want to talk about your feasibility, the functionality and user experience, your materials and your methods, and the aesthetic appeal. So read through this description in detail. These form fields are set up so that you can paste data tables or images right in your description. They are also set up to retain formatting. So if you go and prepare your 5-page submission in, for example, a Word document, then you can just copy and paste that right over here, and it will retain all of the formatting as well as images and tables as mentioned. We have optional fields for you to upload any sketches or diagrams. So you can paste them here in a separate field if you like, any additional ones, or you can upload them as an image file or a PDF. And then any additional documentation that you have is also optional here, and you can upload CAD drawings or CAD illustrations as well. And then finally, an optional field for your URL if you have a website or a portfolio that you would like to include in your submission. So that is how you will submit when you are ready. Then you'll save and preview. Again, the submission deadline, October 31st, 5 p.m. Eastern time, US Eastern time. You can build your submission, you can save it and come back to it anytime up until that submission deadline. You can even submit and come back and edit your submission up until the deadline. Just make sure that you resubmit before the submission deadline, which is October 31st, 5 p.m. US Eastern time. So just looking at the other tabs on the platform, so we have the timeline built out. So again, you can see the deadline here. Now this is local to me. So your time zone will be set based on your HeroX profile. So you will be able to see what that time is for you locally. This is a global competition, so open to everyone. And then judging will begin right after the submission deadline, and we will announce the winners late November, early December. In the Updates tab, this is where if you click that follow button, you'll receive automatic updates about the challenge. So, for example, we had the webinar updates going out this morning, and this is where we will also post the recording of this webinar. So you'll be able to get back to it here. It'll be embedded right here following today's webinar. The challenge forum is where you can ask any questions about the challenge. This section is monitored so that we, the moderators of the challenge, receive alerts anytime a question is posted. You can ask questions to your fellow solvers, or you can ask questions to the challenge sponsor, Ventora, and we will get back to you right away. Here you can see the teams that are competing in the challenge. And then resources, this is somewhat important. Resources, there is a hardware brief, which I can show quickly. So this gives some more background on the challenge. This is a very good read for you as you prepare your submission to think about, because there are a lot of dimensions given, there's a lot of consideration. Now, this is a conceptual challenge. One of the things I really enjoyed in working with Scott and Sam was when they said, yeah, we want the best concepts, the most innovative concepts, because our R&D team, they can build anything. They can put anything out there, any good concept. This will give you some, not necessarily constraints, but just some guidelines of, oh, if I'm considering an interior door, which is what this challenge focuses on, then these are some considerations for what's been done in the past, as well as what you don't need to worry about because it's already been solved, right? So here, for example, traditional door installation. We want to break away from that. We want the most innovative concepts that get away from traditional door installation. So take a look. That PDF is available in that resources tab that I showed. The other thing we can post is today is the slides from today's webinar. We can upload a PDF of the slides for you to review at your leisure. And then we have some frequently asked questions, which we can update with any questions that we receive from the webinar today. So again, that's an overview of the challenge page. Come to the challenge page, follow it, and then submit an entry before October 31st, 5 p.m. US Eastern Time. So now we'll take some questions. And one of the questions we've had that I'm also curious about is, so Scott or Sam, reinventing the door. The door is something we don't think of. Most of us don't think of. You guys think of it, I think, quite often on a daily basis, right? I've got a door sitting here in front of me at my office. I'm going to go through it when we're done here, but I usually don't think about that. Why reinvent the door, the interior door?
You know what? It's a really good question. I think, there's a very famous book, which is Innovate or Die. And I think one of the things we are constantly challenging ourselves on is what is the next stage of the evolution of this product? Just like we're seeing now, the gasoline car has been around for 100 years, and we're now changing to electric cars, and we're seeing more and more of those happens. We're seeing solar panels popping up. We're seeing drones. If we had all just said, let's just stick with what we've got, as a society, we don't move forward. So we're no different in the categories that we look at. And doors, certainly for us, there's a huge opportunity for innovation. The Internet of Things is going to be playing a role. Connected homes is going to be playing a role. And door hardware and latches have been around for a long, long time. I just think there's an opportunity for us to transcend the existing paradigm and take it to a completely new level, where potentially doors are one of those things that people say, that's a good looking door. And when I do go through it, I do notice it. And doors become almost like an artwork or a piece of furniture within the home. And there are certainly some countries and areas in the Australian market where people do see that. And I think it's an opportunity for us to take that to the rest of the population as well.
Well, thanks, Scott. Another question, Sam. You've mentioned this before when we've talked about the design of the challenge, kind of looking at interior doors the way we look at doors on furniture. And it was a concept I hadn't really thought of when you first brought it up. I was wondering if you could talk to our viewers a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. As we modernize our homes, you see a lot of new designs in the kitchen area, in the furniture that is generally used in the house. And there's a lot of innovation that happens, right? There's LED lighting that's happening in kitchens. There's handleless kitchen cupboard doors. There are different finishes on doors. There are routed doors. There are polycarbonate doors, and there's a lot of innovation that goes on in our kitchen cupboard doors and so on. And when you look at the internal door, that also is part of the room, if you like. And therefore, to ignore the internal door and just focus on the kitchen cupboard doors or the lounges that you sit in or the coffee tables, I think if we include the internal doors as part of the overall interior design or interior furniture in a room, then it becomes a seamless sort of transition from the traditional way that doors are hung or handles are turned or knobs are turned, and it just blends in with the modern look, which is quite evident these days in new homes.
Thanks. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, I like that. I like that perspective on it. Great. Well, those are all the questions that we have. So I want to encourage everyone to go to the challenge page and follow the challenge, submit your entries before the deadline. And thank you guys. I love challenge competitions like this where it's kind of blue sky, right? It's whatever you can come up with. Let's reinvent something that's been around for a long time, because we should. And so I really thank you guys for your time, Scott and Sam, for taking the time today. We'll be posting this recording on the HeroX page, and we'll be looking forward to the innovative submissions that come in. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jamie, and good luck to everyone.
Thank you.